Before my comments, I have the honour and privilege of making some small presentations to thank some people for their efforts in creating today. First of all, Magnus, may I invite you up here, please? I need to tell you that Magnus has a Rotary history, in that he was a Rotary exchange student to Berkeley, USA. And he survived. I know that as the official representative of UNESCO today, we greatly appreciate your assistance. Please accept as a memento this vase with the Australian floral emblem on it for your thanks.
Thank you very much.
May I invite Sabina Colombo and Gang Seti also up here, please. Maybe I can? Yes, I can. Excellent. I need to say I am absolutely terrified of dropping this, so there you go. Sabina, your assistance with the relationship between Rotary and UNESCO is greatly appreciated. A small gesture, thank you. And then one of our Rotary's key contacts here, so we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here with you today. I was proposing to mention Rotaract, but given that your eardrums may collapse, I'll refer. Yeah, all right. Good morning, Rotaractors. I was asked to talk today about the relationship between Rotary and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it's a very broad topic. So before I started putting any thoughts down on paper, I had a look at the conference agenda to see who else was talking and what they were likely to say. And when I looked, I saw one short sentence that caught my eye, that stood out and really summarised for me what the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, really mean for Rotary. It said, and this is the quote, "Today, investing in the world we want means contributing to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, because these goals are also ours. Protecting the planet, ensuring a dignified life, and building a peaceful society." And that, in a nutshell, sums up both the relationship between Rotary and the SDGs and our program for today, because Rotary and UNESCO have the same vision for the future. The SDGs are the roadmap for getting them. If anyone here is not already familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, they are a set of 17 very ambitious development goals, building on the Millennium Development Goals that ended in 2015. The SDGs were adopted on the 25th of September 2015 by 193 countries of the United Nations General Assembly. They were developed via what was probably the broadest grassroots democratic process in global history. And when I call them tremendously ambitious, that is probably an understatement. Their ambition, frankly, is breathtaking. Goal 1, no poverty. Goal 2, zero hunger. Goal 3, good health and well-being. Goal 4, quality education. And the next 13 are on the same scale. 17 goals in all, with 169 targets and 304 indicators to measure success. While the global effort involved is massively complex, the vision of the SDGs is simple. It is creating the world all of us would like to live in and to leave to future generations, a world where everyone has access to the basic necessities of life and lives in dignity in a manner that our one shared planet can support. In Rotary, we have a similar goal of a better, safer and more peaceful world. In terms of getting there, we go about things a little bit differently. We have 6 areas of focus in our service. They are building peace and preventing conflict, disease prevention and treatment, water and sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, and economic and community development. In those areas of focus, as in the Sustainable Development Goals, there is often no hard and fast line between one area and another. A project that puts clean water and sanitation in a school, for example, is going to advance not only water and sanitation, but also basic education and literacy, disease prevention, and child health. A successful microcredit project conceived under the banner of economic and community development will improve the well-being of an entire family, raising the level of education, health, and so on. A project that is well planned will always take those considerations into account, looking to see where we can maximise the return on every investment. For example, there are parts of the world where the best thing you can do to get girls in school is not necessarily building more schools or providing more equipment. It is improving the water supply so girls are no longer needed to carry water for the family. In some areas of extreme poverty, the best thing you can do to keep girls in school past the age of 11 or so is providing sanitation to the school. There are endless examples of that in ways that understanding the complex relationships within humanitarian service can lead to more successful results. And there are also areas of focus, as there are SDGs, that reach above and throughout all of the others. For example, in Rotary, peace is both one area of focus and an overarching goal, an idea we've been exploring this year through the international series of presidential peace-building conferences. We are having 6. In relation to the SDGs, gender equality is both a goal in its own right and a prerequisite in reaching the other 16, because it stands to reason that you can't aspire to a healthier, safer and more equitable world while excluding just over half of the population. And even if you tried, it wouldn't work, because you can't improve health or improve education or improve economic well-being without focusing on the women who are at the heart of so much of that activity. The environment is another such topic within the SDGs, one that constitutes several goals and is a major component of many more. Like peace, environmental health and sustainability is not just an idea, but a physical reality, one that underpins everything we do and strive for in Rotary. A safe and stable environment is every bit as crucial to effective and lasting development as a safe and stable society and nation. An environment that is unsafe, that is unstable, is as dangerous to our work as Rotarians and our communities as a state of conflict. It has the same power to undo our progress, to set back development, to create humanitarian crises on every scale. The health of our planet is a topic that is clearly front and centre in the SDGs, which has amongst its goals affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, responsible production and consumption, life below water, life on land, and climate action. Yet for all the attention it receives from the SDGs, environmental sustainability is a topic that we have seldom considered in our Rotary activity, and is perhaps the main area in which our areas of focus and the SDGs diverge. And the reasons for this are many and complex. Environmental issues are sometimes seen as beyond Rotary's capabilities, possibly too political, somehow outside the scope of Rotary's work. But if we believe, as we've always believed, that building world peace is part of our mandate, it's hard to see how cleaner air, water and land could lie outside it. According to the World Health Organization, environmental pollution leads to 1.7 million child deaths every year. Much of that pollution comes from sources that Rotary could indeed do something about. Indoor cooking fires and crop burning practices lead to respiratory illnesses. Poor sanitation contaminates water. Contaminated water leads to diarrhea and stunted growth. These are problems that are far easier and more effective to prevent than they are to remedy. There are also problems that can be effectively addressed on a local scale, community by community, which is how we do things in Rotary. As the realities of a changing climate have begun to have a direct impact on our service activities, we know that the work we do in the future will probably look quite different to the work we do now. Disaster relief is consuming more and more of our resources as Rotary is called on to respond to an increasing number of climate-related disasters. In 2017, we saw many examples of this. While hurricanes and wildfires make the news, water scarcity, drought and crop failure are affecting far more people in potentially far more lasting ways. 4 billion people, that's about half the world's population, now live with major water scarcity at least 1 month a year. Countries like Uganda, which for generations had predictable seasons with predictable agricultural yield, now have no consistent seasons at all. We can't know this and say it's nothing to do with Rotary. It has everything to do with us and will have a greater and greater impact on our work with every passing year. We're at a point in Rotary where we're beginning to look at our areas of focus, to consider ways that they could and should be adapted to better serve our changing world. And it's become clearer in recent years, and particularly along the course of our conferences, that the more closely we align our work with the work of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the better we as Rotary will be able to leverage that work and the more that we'll be able to achieve. Rotary's corporate project of polio eradication is perhaps the greatest example of why, and the most successful example the world has ever seen of efforts successfully magnified through a global partnership. A project that began with one organisation's goal of eliminating one disease has now evolved over more than 3 decades to become the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, the largest public-private health partnership the world has ever seen. As a consequence of that partnership, Rotary and its partners have done far more than come this close to ridding the world of a terrible disease. We have forged connections and lines of communication where none has existed before, and led to cooperation of a kind that was previously unimaginable. We have united participants at every level of government and community, along lines of nation, religion and culture, towards a common goal that all of us support, a world free of polio. As a result of that cooperation, last calendar year 2017 saw just 22 cases of polio caused by the wild polio virus, and that's down from 350,000 cases when we began our ambitious world work back in 1985. So far this year, we've seen 5 cases in just one country, Afghanistan. We hope to see the world's last case of wild polio sometime in the next year. And that would be achievement enough. But we would be remiss if we looked at the end of polio as the final achievement of the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. The end of polio and its coming must be seen not as an end, but as a beginning, as a model for the future, a model that showed everyone how very possible it is to build a better world together. The SDGs adopted by the United Nations 2.5 years ago are in many ways the brainchild of that success. Just as Rotary says, if we work together, we can eradicate polio, the SDGs say, if we work together, we can eradicate poverty and hunger. If we work together, we can end literacy. If we work together, we can keep our planet safe and healthy forever. My hope is that the legacy of polio eradication will be far greater than its original goal. It will leave us with proof that when you have enough people working together, when you understand the problems and the processes, when you combine and leverage your resources, when you make a plan and set your targets, you can indeed move mountains. The need for cooperation on our one shared planet is greater now than ever before. As past administrator of the United Nations Development Programme, Helen Clark, put it, ours is the last generation which can head off the worst effects of climate change, and the first generation with the wealth and knowledge to eradicate poverty. For this, fearless leadership from all of us is needed. I agree with Ms. Clark. In Rotary, as in life, idealism and reality, optimism and practicality can and must exist side by side. Leaving our children a polio-free world won't seem like such an accomplishment if they can't breathe the air or drink the water. We aren't working to build our communities so they can be destroyed by the next round of conflict. We want our work to last. We want our countries to live in peace, and for that, we need to work together. Thank you.